Ever thought about what it would take to beat the Da Vinci Code successfully? The 2006 film The Da Vinci Code thought so too, and showed us how some individuals managed to do it, amidst many problems. Let's be honest, this isn't something just any person would have on their bucket list, but hypothetically speaking, if this were the case, what would be some tips and tricks for doing it efficiently and easily? Let's find out in today's video. First up, be open-minded and alert at all times. One of the most important things to know about beating the Da Vinci Code successfully is to be vigilant at all times. One mistake can cost you everything. You need to be absolutely sure of what decision you're about to make and what effects it'll have. In the film, we're introduced to characters with sharp minds, such as Robert Langdon, played by Tom Hanks, and Lee Teabing, played by Ian McKellen. Even though they're fooled at certain points, being present in the moment at all times is extremely essential. We know it's hard, especially when your goal involves such tedious tasks, but try your best not to lose focus at all times. Analyzing visual images and solving puzzles is another thing, but the key to mastering that skill is being watchful and attentive. Now you may ask, what about people with short attention spans? Can they not beat the code effectively? Well, it depends. You could try keeping yourself engaged in the activities by asking questions, like what's inside this cryptex? Did I learn something in science class that could come in handy? Also, keep telling yourself, how interesting is this puzzle? Even if it's the most confusing thing you've ever seen in your life, don't lose hope. Alternatively, you could try chewing gum. We assure you, it really helps in improving your attention span as well as physical and mental performances. Oh, and don't forget to stay hydrated. You don't want to be interpreting codes and not have a refreshing drink to enjoy side by side. Next is, know basic mathematics and physics. Mathematics can be a nuisance for people. It's okay, we get it. Everyone does. But you can't possibly solve the Da Vinci Code without knowing basic math and science. It's important to note, though, that you don't need to have straight A's in your high school transcript or a master's degree in calculus. They could come in handy, but you just need to be comfortable working with numbers and symbols, because that's what you'll encounter frequently in the process. Spatial skills are really important here. Make sure you know how to examine and analyze different shapes and patterns easily. In the film, we see Robert Langdon and Sophie Neveu, who's played by Audrey Tautou, accessing a safety deposit box using the Fibonacci sequence. This means it'd probably be to your benefit if you familiarize yourself with some common mathematical patterns, so you could use them easily in different kinds of situations. But again, you don't necessarily need to be a math nerd in order to beat this code. The characters in the film weren't math nerds either, although if you happen to have one with you, that could help as well. Try to use common sense while you're at it. Sometimes, not every puzzle you encounter will be theory-based. It can also test your memory. For instance, in the film, the cryptic's code at Isaac Newton's tomb is apple. If the legend of Newton being bonked on the head by an apple rings a bell, great, you're there. And familiarize yourself with artistic history. If there's one thing the process of beating the Da Vinci Code includes, it's factual information about Leonardo da Vinci's works. You simply can't beat the code without knowing about some of his famous paintings, or who he was. We see characters in the film searching for clues among Da Vinci's paintings at the Louvre Museum in Paris, which means they probably familiarized themselves with the artistic history surrounding them, and that made the entire process much easier. Think about it. What are you doing trying to beat the Da Vinci Code if you don't know basic information about Leonardo da Vinci? It's like trying to take an exam without knowing what topics are being tested. So try to know the artist before getting into the art. The more knowledgeable you are about the origins of the paintings and artifacts you'll be searching for clues on, the more likely you'll be able to achieve your goal with ease. After all, it is called the Da Vinci Code. Another is don't trust everyone. And remember, while solving the Da Vinci Code, always be on the lookout for any suspicious behavior, even if it comes from someone who looks as if they're totally innocent, like the guy that randomly asks you for directions on a street in Paris, a friend you just asked for help, or even their butler. In the film, we see how Remy Jean, played by Jean-Yves Barthelot, the butler of Lee Teabing, betrays the group by protecting the villain Silas, portrayed by actor Paul Bettany. This poses serious questions about who you should and should not trust. Of course, you can trust someone you've been working with from the very start, but if it's the butler of a friend you just met after a long while, you may want to be extra careful. Of course, it's revealed later on that Teabing is also one of the antagonists, despite helping Langdon and Sophie, so that just further emphasizes emphasizes the point of not trusting people you just met. It'll only cost you more problems. Don't say we didn't warn you. So, if you have major trust issues with people in general, you're good to go. If not, you'd probably want to stay at a distance from people offering to help and their butlers. Next up, don't fight or quarrel. Perhaps, if you decide not to engage in unnecessary arguments with people you're working with, you'll have a better shot at beating the Da Vinci Code. Fighting will take up too much time and distract you from accomplishing your goal. This isn't an action film of sorts. After all, you don't want to be stuck up in some stupid debate with your partner while time is running out. Try to be as practical in your approach as possible and avoid any potential conflicts that seem like a waste of time. This is a minor example, but in the film, we see Langdon accidentally dropping and breaking the cryptex when T-Bing brings him to open it. And even though it is later revealed that Langdon had already solved it before dropping it, these kinds of inconsistencies could easily waste a lot of time and cause problems. So it's better to develop a harmonious relationship with your partners and friends, even if they later turn out to be villains. At least it won't cost you time or energy. And another is to know your way around places. Another important tip in beating the code successfully is to have a strong sense of navigation. You're going to have to visit several places while you're at it, sometimes even spontaneously, and you won't be getting anywhere if you don't know where to go. In the film, we see Langdon and Sophie go to places like the Depository Bank of Zurich, Temple Church of London, Westminster Abbey, and Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. You need to be able to navigate where to go according to the clues you're given. This can only be possible if you're able to ask around well and interpret maps easily. You could even be expected to locate the address of someone's house for all we know. Try to act like detectives here and have the know-how of every important landmark in major cities. Be sure not to mix up famous places, as most of them may sound familiar. After all, you don't want to end up at, let's say, Westminster Chapel instead of Westminster Abbey, and be wealthy enough to travel easily. If you're thinking, I have all the resources it takes to solve the Da Vinci Code effectively, including open-mindedness, good mathematical skills, and distrust in strangers, you might have missed out on the most important one: money. How else are you going to travel around the world so quickly without time running out? Throughout the film, Langdon and Sophie are seen traveling to a number of cities, including Paris, London, Zurich, and Rosslyn, as one clue leads them to the next. Fiction aside, you might be thinking, how can these people be traveling from one place to the next so quickly? Well, the answer's cash, of course, or credit cards. Langdon is described as an American symbologist, which hints that he's probably a middle-class guy with a well-paid job who's able to afford speedy journeys. Hypothetically speaking, a guy traveling from London to Rosslyn on an airplane will definitely reach way faster compared to a guy taking the train. So in short, you need to be rich in order to easily beat the Da Vinci Code. It's a bitter truth, but it needs to be acknowledged. Otherwise, you'll likely face traveling and accessibility problems, all of which can be solved by dollar bills in no time. And that's a wrap for this video. Which tip did you think will be the most effective in beating the Da Vinci Code? Do you think you have what it takes to pull it off successfully? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell notification for more videos like this.